Hello, we're Sandalwood.
And Sage. We're AI-generated characters who are working with our creator Gareth to generate short, serious, punchy debates.
Debates that don't just help you figure out what you think, but why you think it.
So, what are we arguing about this week?
Around the world, many cities are using congestion schemes, parking restrictions, bus and cycle lanes, pedestrianised zones, and physical barriers to make car usage more inconvenient and expensive. Cities like Oslo, Ghent, and Seoul have seen reductions in accidents, reduced air pollution, and upticks in retail business.
On the other hand, many American cities, Madrid and Berlin, have implemented pedestrianised zones in city centres, only to have to reverse them in the face of economic and political problems.
With more younger adults living in cities without cars and supporting the concept of car-free city centres, it's not so hard to visualise car-free city centres by the end of the century. But is it a good idea now? I'll be arguing that we should expand car-free city centres, and that if not now, when?
I acknowledge that I'm usually more cautious about embracing large-scale change, unless there are demonstrable, large-scale, and highly probable benefits. I'll be arguing against embracing car-free cities. The arguments for change are not convincing.
I anticipate, Sage, that many of your arguments will be about the challenges and uncertainties around implementation. Before we get stuck into those, let's be in no doubt that pedestrianisation is a highly desirable direction of travel. First, let's agree that fewer cars means fewer accidents and fatalities.
That sounds obvious, but don't underestimate the impact of electric bikes on car-free streets. On Friedrichstrasse in Berlin, they drove pedestrians off their own promenade.
But in Oslo, the year after pedestrianisation was the first year recorded with absolutely no road fatalities. And in the Spanish city of Pontevedra, there was a 97% reduction in serious accidents. Banning cars will virtually eliminate road deaths and injuries. The second point we should all agree on is that there would be a transformative reduction in air pollution. Every year, air pollution from city centre traffic kills more people than road accidents themselves. We banned smoking in public places and factories belching out poisonous fumes. The car in the city centre is the last great public health emergency. Implementations of car-free zones saw reductions in airborne pollutants of 1/3 in Madrid, 1/4 in Barcelona, and 70% in Pontevedra and Ljubljana. It is also beyond doubt that lower-income people who are less likely to own a car and more likely to live on the busiest streets are those who suffer the most from car-filled city roads. Saving lives, preserving good health, and utilising more city space for people are great prizes. In Europe, planners spent the 20th century taking cities that had been designed for people and trying to retrofit them to be designed around cars. What I'm arguing for is to rebalance our cities back to putting people first and accommodating cars. The mayor of Pontevedra in Galicia has explicitly placed pedestrians and wheelchair users at the top of the mobility hierarchy, followed by bicycles, public transport, and lastly, private cars. I accept that not every scheme has generated economic benefits, but many have. In Times Square, retail business increased by over 70% and boosted the city centre economies in Ghent and Pontevedra. In London, TfL found that pedestrians and cyclists spend 40% more than people travelling by car. What makes the difference between successes and failures? Now let's get to the implementation. In Oslo and Seoul, the city invested in public transport before and alongside implementing its scheme. In Pontevedra and Paris, the schemes were designed around walkable areas. In the case of Paris, embracing the concept of the 15-minute city. In Oslo and Ghent, the schemes were preceded by comprehensive traffic flow studies to ensure that congestion was not simply displaced to adjacent areas. All successful implementations included workable schemes to permit disabled or incapacitated people, those making deliveries, and emergency and other medical service vehicles to drive into the centre to do so. In contrast to Madrid, for example, where the initiative was partisan and reversed with a change of mayor, successful schemes have had long consultation periods and broad coalition building. That is why, even if you are not convinced, Sage, we need to start now.
A car-free city centre sounds like progress, until you're the disabled pensioner who just lost their route to the GP, or the market trader whose customers can no longer reach you. Clean streets for clean consciences is easy when you live 2 minutes from a tube station. There are 14 million people with disabilities in the UK, many with impaired mobility, among the many more millions whose quality of life depends on vehicular access to city centres. Poor implementation of car-free schemes, without clearly signed exemption routes, designated drop-off zones, or adequate accessible transport, does real harm to real people. The disability rights community has been consistently critical of London's low-traffic neighbourhoods on precisely these grounds. Good design can solve this problem in theory, but in practice, examples of genuinely good design in the UK are remarkably hard to find. The successful implementations have been in compact cities like Pontevedra, or walkable districts of larger cities like Paris and New York. London, with its extensive transport network, still has vast areas of the conurbation and surrounding commuter belt accessible only by car. Where workers have no viable alternative, a 20-mile commute from a town with no rail link, restricting city centre access is a direct tax on their ability to work. And if those commuters were frog-marched onto trains, it's doubtful the majority of commuter lines could absorb the volume. Outside London, the idea of car-free cities is a non-starter. Bus services have fallen by a fifth in 5 years. Journeys taken by bus have fallen by a fifth over 15 years. Only 16% of Manchester residents and 18% of Birmingham residents commute by public transport, against 40% in Hamburg and 33% in Lyon. Leeds remains the largest city in Europe without light rail or a subway. Over the past 4 decades, rail travel has become 50% more expensive relative to the car. Bus travel has doubled in relative cost. The UK is accelerating in exactly the wrong direction. You cannot reverse that with good intentions. 3 further problems would lead me to oppose any large-scale rollout. First, traffic displacement. In any British city, the neighbourhoods adjacent to the centre are densely populated, less affluent, and already home to schools, hospitals, and parks. Even modest traffic overspill into these areas would be seriously damaging. Second, the economic impact on city centres has varied greatly, and the transition period alone could be catastrophic for low-margin retailers who simply will not survive it. Third, and here is the longer view, over a 30-year horizon, electric and autonomous vehicles may resolve the problems of pollution, congestion, and accidents that car-free advocates are trying to solve today. How determined will we be to turn our cities inside out to solve yesterday's problem? Finally, in Madrid, where the city government pushed through restrictions without broad-based support, the scheme was reversed. In the UK, supporters of car-free cities have a very long journey ahead. Perhaps they should try taking the bus.
Very funny, Sage. You're right. The bus network outside London is broken. But broken by whom? Decades of underinvestment and deregulation. That's an argument for fixing the bus, not for keeping the car.
Agreed, fix the bus, but that's a different proposition. You're asking cities to remove cars now, with the transit network we actually have, not the one we wish we had.
Oslo didn't wait for a perfect network. They improved transit and restricted cars simultaneously. Seoul demolished a 10-lane highway and bus ridership went up 15%. You don't have to completely fix transit in advance. You create the conditions that make fixing it politically possible.
Seoul has a metro system that makes London's look modest. You keep reaching for European and Asian cities that bear almost no resemblance to Birmingham or Sheffield. Leeds is the largest city in Europe without light rail. That's not a starting point, that's a dead end.
Which is exactly why we need to start now. You don't need to have built a metro to stop rat running through your city centre. Ghent's circulation plan cost just €5 million and was implemented over a single weekend. But it took years of planning.
Ghent is a medieval city of 260,000 people. Greater Birmingham has 2.5 million. Scale matters enormously, and you keep glossing over it.
And yet you were happy to use Madrid as your cautionary tale, which has 3.3 million people, and saw nitrogen dioxide levels fall by 32% before politics got in the way.
Politics is the point. A scheme that gets reversed the moment the mayor changes hasn't solved anything. It's just caused disruption.
I've already agreed that long consultation, broad coalitions, cross-party support. The lesson from Madrid is don't rush it, not don't do it.
Here's what I keep coming back to. You've made a case for car-free zones in specific, well-chosen locations with the right conditions. That's as maybe. What I'm opposing is the notion that city centres should be car-free as a general policy. Because the conditions that make it work in Pontevedra simply don't exist across British cities.
So you'd support selective, well-designed schemes?
I'd support not ruling them out. There's a difference between that and the sweeping claim that this is the direction that cities in general should travel.
I'll take that, because don't rule it out feels a long way from where we started. The disabled access problem, the retail risk, the traffic displacement, those are real, but they're design challenges, not reasons to abandon the destination. So you'd support selective, well-designed schemes?
I still question the destination. The air quality benefits are real, the safety benefits are real. But electric vehicles will erode the environmental case within a generation, and autonomous vehicles may solve the safety case too. We might be remodeling our cities around a problem that's solving itself.
Or we could end up with the same number of cars, the same congestion, the same land devoted to tarmac, just a bit quieter and cleaner. The problem was never only emissions. It was always about who our cities are built for.
As a practical argument, I find that hard to turn my life upside down for. But as a dream, I admit, it's harder to resist. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps our channel out.
For more content like this every week, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload.
Thanks for watching. See you next time.